What's I find really interesting about this topic is that for someone that maybe didn't have that experience, and let's say they're a little bit later on in life and they're at that position where they've got that first deposit, right, or that deposit, and they're now electing, well, do I buy a home to live in or do I invest? Right? This is where it gets really fascinating because I didn't even consider the idea of investing. It was just, buy a home. But when someone's stage of life is different, and this is the personal circumstances we're looking at from there, that's where all these conflictions start to come from. And then the other side of things is once you start to invest like I have, that when do you upgrade becomes a really interesting question as well. Or when's appropriate to buy your dream home, when that becomes appropriate as well. So then the idea of these things start to become more poignant. So I'll kick over to you first, Aaron, on this one. But when you're looking at that considerations thing, and you mentioned a few already, like the social ties and things like that, maybe being close to family is important to you in that context there. Are there any other considerations you would throw into the mix here?
Well, we could pick on the landlords here if you really want to. We're on a property podcast, so who wants to answer to their landlord anymore? Who likes to have a repair refused, or someone else ruling their life, or every 6 months having things your rent go up? Like, I know I'm pretty well picking on people that need to invest.
No, you're actually throwing shots at me right now, Aaron. So for my personal circumstances at the moment, I'm actually renting right now. We had intended to buy in the area we're living at the moment, but with all the things that were going on during the pandemic, we actually couldn't find an appropriate property. And we still wanted to be in the area, so the decision was made, we'll rent here and eventually buy in this area. The experience of being a renter after being a homeowner has really highlighted to me just like, Australia doesn't necessarily have the best rental setup compared to what is seen in other places. So you mentioned this one here around repairs and things refused. We asked, and this is so ridiculous, we asked for some fly screens to be put on the house because we were like, well, we don't want bugs and things to get in when the window is open, thinking, they're not expensive. We're also thinking it's good to look after the property. We want to do the right thing. We don't want to be making a mess here or have anything go. To have them come back and say, you can put them in only 3 rooms. We're not doing the whole house. I'm like, what? That is absolutely ridiculous. And then to your second point is that rents have gone ballistic in the area I'm in. And it's now becoming a very interesting conversation around with how much rents are going up. We can practically buy for the same cost or equivalent in our situation. So that is another really, really fascinating one that just highlights home. Now,
there's a couple of things that come up with this one is back many years ago when we were first starting mortgage broking, we had all these rent versus buy calculators. And I think we're either at or we're at the level of interest rate and debt level and rental amount that those calculations have all come back. Just yesterday, I was talking to a client and they're going, I don't want to pay the 5.24. I don't want to pay the 5.5 or wherever your interest rate is. But I remember when we were providing those rates and they're going, how did you get your rate so low at 5.24? But I think those calculators have come back, the rent versus buy thing. So that's a really, really interesting one. But I want to, the pain point for me here, and I've talked about it with Karina, is what if you buy a house or you build a house and then you find that something happens to the house that needs a major repair that you don't have rental income to offset? So my personal experience, I've just had to spend $20,000 on stormwater. Now, you can drive past my house. You could take your early morning coffee, Charlie, and your tracky dacks and come past my house and go, how cool does Aaron's stormwater look? Because everyone can see it, right?
I don't think it adds any value to the property either, right?
No, like it just, obviously it would maintain its value because the water's getting off the property. So anything that you do to your own property, you throw money at it, it just sits in the capital bank, so to speak, and then you obviously have no capital gains tax on your own house, but you can't access that capital unless you want to build your wealth with equity to buy investments, or you want to upgrade your home, or you want to be able to utilize the tax haven of no capital gains tax and downgrade your home later on in life.
Huge considerations here, right? That PPR doesn't have the deductibility. Really doesn't have the deductibility and things like that. And I feel for your stormwater situation, If you got to spend money on a property, right, you want it to be value add. But these are the things that come with owning properties in general when we play this sport. That tax advantage, though, and just to recap on it, is you don't, to my knowledge at this point with PPR, there is no land tax, is a huge one. And then the second part of that is you get, there's no capital gains tax either, is my understanding.
That's right.
You get so where in property investing, you can get a discount on capital gains tax if you hold for longer than a year, which is a 50% discount. But the land tax side of things, obviously very, very effective there, which is, again, this financial consideration. Now, Karina, I want to kick back to you. What's your experience been like as a renter? Is there a desire to own a home, or have you had a great rental experience?
The rental experience has been interesting. Because
wait. No one says interesting because it was good.
No, because you say your landlord has come back and said, yes, we'll put the fly screens in, but in 3 rooms. But often the case can be, no, we're not going to fix that. Or you have another means for airflow, like your air conditioning's not working, or the fans are working. So because you have another option, we're not going to fix the one that actually heats, not just cools. So renting is interesting. I actually have another way of living as a professional house sitter. So I kind of get and have had over the last 10 years an experience where I actually haven't paid rent. I've just lived in other people's homes with the requirement that I look after their animals while they're away.
What a setup. Talk about like the not having to live with your parents so you can get out of the house while maintaining a low living cost so you can invest hard. Like what a leapfrog method to get into property investing.
I am a professional nomad.
I dig it. Do you have the desire to own your own home though? Is that something you personally see and want?
I can see it in 20 years' time. I can see it in the idea that when I'm retired, I can imagine, like the idea is, 60 and packing up and going traveling and, the grey nomads in their caravans around Australia or something like that. But the reality is, health issues can often kick in. And I think that the dream of traveling the world at 60 might not actually be a reality. And I think there is something to say about stability. And I think as humans, we do seek stability. I love change. Adaptability for me is I'm open for it and I'm all for it. And, everyone in the office has a bit of a joke about I live in my car and I move around. And, of course I've got super glue in the boot of my car because everything is there. Mind you, I've got a coupe, so there's not a lot of room in the back of my car. But it has given me freedom to choose where I want to live. And I don't take every sit that comes along. I've really restricted it the last few years as I've focused on business. And I think when you have a job that allows you to work wherever you are based, it opens up opportunities for you. If you have to commute every day to the office or to the factory or whatever it is, you are restricted on the area that you live unless you want to be commuting over an hour every day, which is not uncommon in Sydney.
Oh, Sydney, 3 kilometres an hour, 10 kilometres an hour, Central Coast, an hour.
This is another factor, right? Really big factor. I'll go into some more, and this is more sharing part of my own experience. Something that's really changed for me, the rent vesting idea to me worked. I really looked at the maths. I valued some of the flexibility, and kids has changed that for me. And one of the factors I look to is that school zones start to be something we consider. So for those of us with kids, we start thinking about making sure we can provide a good education and what schools our kids go to. Now, in my case here, there is a school we really like and want Jack to go to, but it is in a very tightly held owner-occupier area. There is not great rental accommodation available for that area if you want to be in that school zone. So in some cases, the rent vestor thing sounds ideal until there aren't properties in that area for rent. You might actually have to consider a PPR move if you want to provide those things. Now, that's not an investment decision, a school zone. Actually, it might be from the point of view, it might be a good area to buy because there's demand for the area. But as for it adding to your portfolio like an investment property would, it's not the factor you're looking at against other things like might be yield or cash flow or growth or things like that in that way as well. So hugely changed things for me in that type of thinking.
All right, fellow property investor, if you loved the value from this short video and wanted to know more about how you can win at property investing, check out the full episode by clicking the link on your screen or in the description right now. Alternatively, click subscribe and you'll never miss another one of these videos.